I mean, even if there are a few objections, probably go ahead and get started anyway. Welcome to the 2021 Great Barrington Candidates Forum. With Election Day 1 week away, this is a chance for the good people of Great Barrington to hear directly from candidates for local office. It's a pleasure to be back here with you again. I think this is the third year that I've moderated this. My name is Ken Knox. I'm assistant professor of mathematics at Simon's Rock. So get ready for the pop quiz. It's coming. Get those calculus books open. And this event is sponsored today by the newsletter and by the Democratic and Republican committees of Great Barrington. So thank you to the newsletter and the Democratic and Republican committees. You can contact Eileen Mooney for information on the newsletter. And you can contact Michael Wise about the Democratic committee and Buddy Atwood about the Republican committee. Before we get into things, I'd like to briefly mention these meeting norms for today. So we are having this meeting virtually on Zoom, and I would ask you to please have your sound off when you're not speaking. So when you're not speaking, please mute that microphone. And of course, have your sound on when you do want to speak. You may type your questions in the chat, and as soon as I see them, I will ask them to the candidates. So I will be checking the chat for questions. You may use the raise hand function in Zoom. If you do that, I'll do my best to get to you and your question in the order that I see those raised hands. You may also turn on your video and physically raise your hand, although that will be more difficult for me to figure out that you're wanting my attention, just given the fact that there's about 70 people in the room. So I'm not always going to be scrolling through to everyone, but certainly if you turn on your camera and give a wave, I'll try to look out for you. We do want everybody to have time to answer your questions. This is a forum where I want to hear from the candidates mostly. So let's orient our thought towards hearing from the candidates a little bit more and maybe hearing from us a little bit less. And so in that spirit, I would ask you, well, everyone, candidates and participants, please avoid crosstalk whenever possible. Of course, please avoid name calling, uncivil behavior. Please limit your questions to about 30 seconds or less, if possible, and that will help us keep this meeting short and maximize the amount of time that we are hearing from the candidates. And just so you know, not that I expect any disruptive behavior, but participants who are disruptive to the point that I cannot, in my best judgment, continue the meeting will be first asked politely to quiet themselves and allow the meeting to continue. And subsequently, you may have your microphone muted. After that, we may put you in the waiting room to cool down for a few minutes. And after that, the final escalation would be removal from the meeting. But of course, we don't want to do that, and we don't expect any issues. Finally, are there any write-in candidates today that I'm unaware of? If you're a write-in candidate for office, please let me know now so that I can get you involved in the discussion. Okay, I'm not hearing about any write-in candidates now, but of course you can let me know later on if someone joins. And we want to hear from everyone on the ballot who's here and wants to speak, of course, but I understand that there's only one contested race this time, and that's for select board. So I understand there's 3 candidates for 2 open seats on the select board. So I think it appropriate that we start with the select board first and start with those candidates. And I'd like to run this sort of like a Q&A, but also like a discussion. So I think what we'll do is I'll give each select board candidate up to 2 minutes to introduce yourself, but you can keep it very brief if you want. There's no need to take up all that time. And after each candidate has introduced themselves, I think it would be fine to go straight to questions, although I have some things prepared that I could also talk about. But I want to keep it community focused as much as possible. So why don't we get straight into that? So let's just go through maybe in alphabetical order by last name, and I'll be reading your names. But if I mispronounce your name, or if you prefer that I address you in a different manner, you can correct me, or you can send me a private chat. Kate Burke, are you here today?
I am here.
So yeah, nice to meet you. And by the way,
Nice to meet you
course,
too.
I've never spoken to any of these candidates, so and I don't live in Great Barrington. I live in West Stockbridge, so in that sense, I'm quite neutral. But now, yeah, now comes my favorite part of the meeting where I can stop talking so much. And Kate, if you'd like to take up to 2 minutes to introduce yourself, please do so now.
Yeah, my name's Kate Burke. I am currently on the select board. I'm running as an incumbent. I joined the select board 3 years ago, and I did it because I really wanted to see young families like mine being represented in our community, and how we move forward over time. And I still feel that way. I did it because I really want to set an example for my young daughter, who's now 7 and goes to Muddy Brook, that her voice is really important, that our voices are really important, and being involved is really important. Um, and and I think that's been really huge, not only for my daughter, but for other kids that I see around town or parents. They're like, oh, I watched the meeting about the airport, and my daughter was so excited to see a mom that she knew. Um, and and I just, the voice that I bring to the select board is one of a different generation. Some may find that to be good, and some might find that to not be good. But I think one of the things that's really promising about my younger generation is our ability to see everybody who isn't being included, or try to listen to everybody who's not being included in the conversation, and do our best to support those people. And that's something I've really strived for in my work on the board. And so I'll answer more questions when we get there later.
Thank you so much. Next, is Eric Gabriel here tonight?
Unmute.
Yeah. Eric, you're muted.
Maybe having some technical difficulties getting Eric on the line. I understand he's with us though. So Eric, if you're here, no one can hear you. If you can hear
Eileen,
us.
what's the mute process again? It's the star and then wait a few seconds. Eileen figured it out. It's just coming in my phone.
I don't know that off the top of my head. Does anybody know how to mute or unmute from the telephone?
Try taking out your AirPods and just use your
Dial
computer.
9 from the phone.
Yeah, it's the AirPods that aren't turned on to the Zoom.
Oh, there you go. Great.
Well, as our vaccination rates get higher and higher, these
Eric, take your earpods out of your ears, shut them off, and go to the bottom left part of your computer and hit the microphone.
So I think what we'll do is move on to the next candidate, and then after that, we'll give Eric a chance to get his audio set up. Garfield Reed, are you here tonight?
I am here this evening.
So please take up to 2 minutes and.
All right, I will. My name is Garfield Reed. I am 70 years old, but I feel 50. I live at 107 Castle Hill Avenue in Great Barrington, Mass. I've been there for 37 of the 43 years I've been in Great Barrington, moving from Danbury, Connecticut in 1978. Right now, I'm currently an associate member of the Planning Board. I'm a full member of the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust.
I'm sorry, how about now?
Also, I am also a member of the Community Impact Fund. I'm also on the on the American Cancer Society's event leadership team. I'm a 17-year cancer survivor, so I'm a fighter. I just want to let you know that. I think if you want to serve the town, then you must serve the town. I've done some volunteer work for 10 years. I delivered meals for the First Congregational Church when they were up and running. I often made meals myself and delivered them for Christmas. I did that this year as well. I'm very community oriented. I think if elected, I would listen to everyone. I know I would speak for all the folks. I think I have a kind of a blue collar mentality, and I think we might have or need a voice. I would like to be that voice. I also know if I am indeed elected, I know I will serve all the folks of Great Barrington and Housatonic. I also know that if elected, it's not my job to have all the answers, but certainly it's my job to get the answers for you and to do my homework and to come back with answers that are suitable for the town and the people. That's me for now. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Eric Gabriel, if you've got your technical difficulties worked out.
You need your sound.
You're unmuted. You're muted. Unmute
Hit the right left-hand corner of your computer and hit the mute, unmute.
Still have the mute button. We can see your mute button is still.
There you
Take it off. You just put it back on. You're off now.
Eric, make sure your headphones are unplugged from your computer, please.
It worked a minute ago when he interrupted.
He's
Oh,
out of
okay.
control. Here he goes.
We just heard you.
Yes, when you were interrupted, we heard you fine.
Take your earbuds off and turn them off. Use your computer.
Christ, what a disaster.
Hey, Eric, I think you need to unplug the headphones from the computer.
And Eric, we can't hear you.
And in the summer, I would landscape or work whatever construction trade would be hiring me at the time. This went on until I would save enough money to move out of town looking for more opportunities. I cycled through this several times, but I was always lured back by family, Berkshire summers, and a deep sense of home I feel when walking the streets of Great Barrington. In my late 20s, I knew there was no more fighting it. This was my home. I also knew it was time to get serious if I was to make this happen. I needed to put my nose to the ground and get aggressive about creating something for myself here. I needed to find a way to live and work here without a constant worry of making ends meet. I started night school and became an electrician, started my apprenticeship with a local contractor. I was lucky enough that we had a great teacher named Jack Bloom who taught locally at Mount Everett. Now one would have to drive all the way up to North Adams to do these same courses, and this needs to change. I want to work with local schools and Green Rangers to help the youngest adults learn the trades. Offering trade school courses at BCC's Southern Campus would be a great place to start. I'm also proud to say I don't just talk about affordable housing, I create it. I've been able to make take houses that are in vacant or in serious disrepair and turn them into affordable homes for families. I've had great tenants. My first tenant stayed for 8 years and they were able to purchase their own home just around the corner. I decided to start my own electric business about 10 years ago. And I bought my first work van for $3,000 and it was a total rust bucket. I now have a solid crew of 5 and they make it possible for me to pivot and focus giving back to this amazing community. I'm ready to jump in feet first and meet the demands of the Great Barrington Select Board member. Thank you. I'm going to try to get this hearing situation sorted. So if you can give me a few seconds, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. So I think that what we'll do next is go straight to questions. And I do have a question for the 3 candidates. This is from Karen and Fred Clark. To all 3 candidates, either directly or by their endorsers, all 3 candidates have said they will listen to the voices of all residents, many of whom are not typically heard. How will you ensure that those voices are heard and their concerns are addressed? So that's for all 3 candidates from Karen and Fred Clark.
Well, sir, this is Garfield. I would pay close attention to what's being, I will listen and I will hear everything. I will make sure that I will have an open line with myself. So if you need to communicate with me and there's something you think is important, I will definitely listen to it. And if you want to follow it up, if there's something you think is really important to you, I will listen. I will make it important to myself. And if we go about the right channels and go about things the way they should be, I'd be happy to assist in something that maybe you feel is important and needs to be accomplished. So I would listen very intently to what's being said and also have an open door policy, even though I am on the board if elected. That would be my policy. So I can indeed listen to everyone.
Ken, do you have a specific way that you would like us to go in order to answer, or just jump in? Would you like me to go?
So I think for questions directed for all 3 of you, I think jumping in is okay for as long as it works. If
Okay, great.
If
Yeah.
it doesn't, then we'll put more structure. But
So I guess to answer that question, I do that in a lot of different ways. I listen to the people that come to select board meetings. I listen to people through my work with food pantries and farmers. I also listen to people at CHP Family Center through their food pantries that I work with. I used to at the farmers market as I was the manager of that for 4 years, but I am not doing that anymore. So that outlet of constant kind of community contact isn't there for me anymore. And I'd like to find something to replace that. I see parents at bus stops and drop-offs. My neighbor across the street is 85, and we also often have tea together, and she informs me of things that are going on, although not so much this year with the pandemic, but still. So I want to be a social worker. I was supposed to start school for that this year. I dropped out because of COVID and needing to be home with my children. Listening is one of my best skills, and I do that as much as I can.
Yes. I think anybody that knows me knows I'm a fantastic listener. People always come to me telling me their problems, their issues, what they're working on, and everything. And I feel I'm there to listen, and I can help anybody negotiate different paths. And I too will have very open door policy. People knock on my door, talk to me about things, neighbors. So I'm excited about that aspect of getting more involved with the community and trying to help everybody reach their goals and accomplish what they want to accomplish here in Great Barrington.
okay, thank you. Next question comes from Rebecca Gold. And again, this is for all three candidates. And since it's for all three, but maybe we can keep our responses a little brief, or if we want to, or if there's rebuttal, then we can do that too. So the question is, I think all three candidates have voiced their support for our schools, but I would like to know exactly what support means for each of them, particularly in regards to the high school. It's from Rebecca Gold for all three candidates.
I can answer my current, my mom went to high school there. I went to high school there. I really don't want my daughter to go to high school there too. Like, something needs to be done. She's 7. I'm hoping there will be a new school by then. The state currently, or just recently, said that they will not be supporting funding the new high school project in the near future. I think our best bet is to really, in terms of the high school, is to really support the group that is looking at changing regionalization and help support that happening so that we can get closer to a new high school for everyone. In terms of supporting the schools, I do often come to school board meetings to voice concerns. One of my big concerns with the school district right now is the loss of pre-K and early K for younger kids. That's really going to put parents out, especially parents that can't afford to pay for school. So that's another thing that I've been talking to them about.
This is Garfield. I would speak to the 2 school boards that are now in negotiation, thinking about possibly consolidating the 2 schools or figuring out what would work best for the students that will be attending the school. We all know that there's some declining numbers, so that's why it's important to look at consolidation. But I'm also concerned and thinking that we need to have a very viable vocational component to the school. So I will push for that as well and hope to be in the meetings with the school boards, although that is their decision. As a select board member, ours is to okay or not okay, if you will, their plans. But for me, myself, I think it's important that we listen. We know that the school needs some work. We may not have the money to do everything, but we do need to have looked at for a vocational component to the school. There are good paying jobs in that area. I think better paying jobs. We are a service industry, so we can get the high school up and running and promote that vocational program. I think it'd be a lot better for the citizens of Great Barrington and the young folks that we'd love to stay here.
Yes, I too am for possibly merging both the schools if that's what comes out as being the best path. I would also like to see, which I don't feel like I've seen in the past, is just like a couple options set out for people. Last time, like if we were to revamp, just reuse the existing building, but do a total overhaul on it, or just a whole new site. If just a couple options can be put to the people to decide. I know it's a lot of work, but either way, we do need a completely new school if we're going to stick with Monument Mountain, whether it's completely revamped, totally remodeled existing building, or if it's a new site, or if we combine the 2 schools. But I think multiple choices should be brought to the community and let them narrow it down on the best way to move forward.
Okay, we may return to the school district issue, but for now, I do want to get as many citizen questions in as possible. So I've got, forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, Vivian Orlovsky would like to ask a question. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, Vivian, and ask, please do so.
Thank you, Ken. Yes, that's the correct pronunciation. More than 100 Massachusetts towns offer an elderly tax deferral safety net program. It enables longtime homeowners to use their own funds to stay in their own homes. Because seniors pay the taxes later plus interest, it does not raise anyone else's taxes. The Great Barrington Council on Aging and the Berkshire Eagle recommended senior tax deferral for Great Barrington, and the Eagle suggested throughout Berkshire County for all towns. So my question to the select board is, will you support such a pilot program on senior tax deferral for our town?
Vivian, thank you for the question, and I would definitely be supportive of that.
Yes, thank you this is Garfield. Thank you, Vivian. I'm also in favor of any safety net program for long-term senior home owner that doesn't raise the taxes for anyone. I think the senior property tax deferrals would be a great way to do so. I am a senior. I think it needs to be delved into a little more. I understand that there's some towns that see it working. I'd like to see if we can work in this town as well, but we still have a little homework to do. Again, as a senior, I don't see it as a bad thing.
I agree with the other gentleman. I mean, there's not much more to say. It seems to be a really great program, but it does need to just double check. And I think one of the concerns is if it does enough. Is there a way for us to do more?
Thank you.
Thank you. Switching topics a little bit. This next one comes from Peter Most. So I think we all knew this was going to come up. Let's talk about the Great Barrington Fairgrounds. So Peter Most says there has been some suggestion that it should be purchased by the town and turned into a park. Would you support that effort?
This is Garfield. I would not support that effort. We have many parks in this town. Don't get me wrong, I love parks. But if you look around Great Barrington, there are many small parks that aren't even utilized now. I would like to think that in some way, I'm not an engineer, but it would be lovely if we could find some engineering to stop that as being a floodplain and find if we could put an industrial park in there. That would be the park that I would like to see. We have plenty of parks in our town right now. So I don't think I would like to turn that into a park. I'd like to turn it into something more that we can utilize more by the citizens of Great Barrington. Again, we have many parks in our town.
Any of the other candidates like to?
Yes, I'm pretty excited about the fairgrounds in general. Hoping something is going to occur there. It makes me nervous about Great Barrington being involved in the real estate market, though. So I would be hesitant. It's not for sale. The other thing that we heard about, somebody buying the fairgrounds, if they were to come up for sale and donate property to Great Barrington, that sounds very interesting to me, but I would have to see the whole plan, what they were going to do with the front section of the fairgrounds, and how that would relate to what the town would do in the back. But as far as the town actually buying the fairgrounds themselves, I'm personally not interested. But, more open space in Great Barrington, more parks, if it was the right situation, I'm definitely not opposed to.
I think that it's something that is a sore subject in Great Barrington, just in general, the fairgrounds and what could be the potential for that. And I think it is worth entertaining any idea, but it certainly doesn't mean that that idea has to go forward. It's currently privately owned by a nonprofit. Taxes are paid on the section that has the solar panels, so it does generate some income, but it's a rather unusable, undevelopable piece of land, as most of it is wetland. And so it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. And, it's nice to see some interest in progress, but it might not be the right thing, but it's still nice to have conversations about it.
Okay, thank you. And while we're on the topic of property, so I understand, and forgive me if I'm not completely up to speed on everything, but I understand there was discussion about well, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. I understand there was some discussion about the raising or keeping the Housatonic School building, and also some discussion about spending some funds to protect the roof and board up the windows before a decision is made on the building's future. I wonder what the candidates feel about that, the Housatonic School, and spending funds to board up roof and windows before while a decision's being made.
Answer there. You know, I live just a block away from the Housatonic School. I used to go there when I was a kid, and I love that building. I think it's the centerpiece of Housatonic, and I think, you know, it has been an ongoing saga for a while for us in Housatonic. And we've gotten close a few times, but the prize has never been captured. But I'm on the Housatonic Improvement Committee, and it's our main focus. And I want to see that building protected. I want to see the $30,000 put up to tarp the roof, plywood the walls, the windows. And you know, there was other monies that was set aside to shore up the building. And you know, I'm fighting for that to happen. I want that to happen. I think it can now is we're so close to all this new investor money coming in. I just think there's other people have started to, you know, state that they're interested in the building. I feel that we need to give it one more solid shot, have the town show that we're interested in developing and putting money into infrastructure in Housatonic. And I think it would just start, Housatonic would just take off with artisan space, maker space, with, you know, childcare. There's so many young families here. The possibilities for that building are endless in my mind. So I'm excited about it, and that's really why I'm involved. That's a huge portion of why I'm involved, because I love that building and I wanted to say. So, thank you.
This is Garfield. From what I understand with the talks I've had with some of the town officials, we're actually waiting for the Housatonic Improvement Committee to come up with a suggestion for that building before the town puts out another RFP. So I know it's very controversial. It's something that people I know are near and dear to people in Housatonic. But right now it appears that they're waiting for a decision from the Housatonic Improvement Committee to see how they feel about what they want to do and if their suggestion is a viable one.
I think the Housatonic School is a really great example of listening to the people that something is going to affect the most. And so I think, although the timeline is not going exactly how we would want it to go, it feels like it's taking a very long time, and the building is getting worse in that period of time. I'm glad of the process, at least most recently the process. I think it was a year and a half ago that the select board went to Housatonic and held a meeting in the Hoosie Dome. And we listened to the residents of Housatonic about what they would like to see happen in that building. And it was really split. Some people wanted to see it stay. Some people wanted to see it go. And I think, you know, establishing the Housatonic Committee and continuing to listen to the people that are involved and live closely and have an invested interest in that building is most important in figuring out what to do next with it.
Okay, thank you. So I understand next that Nan Weil has some questions. And since we have so many people and so many questions, I wonder if you'd limit yourself for now to one question. And then maybe we can come back to you if we have time.
Thanks, Ken. I have questions, actually several questions for specific to each candidate. And yeah, let me start with Kate. Kate, I think you're a swell woman, and I've known you for years and years. I know you were unsure of running for election and then changed your mind. That was one of my questions. But what I actually am very concerned about is I'd like to know what motivated you last spring to move to close the ATM before all the petitions were presented. That's very problematic for me. Thank you.
Nan, that's a really good question. And I can understand why that is really concerning to you. I think my big motivator was that it was dark, it was cold, and there was very close to not having a quorum anymore. And it felt like it was time to go home for the night. And maybe that was the wrong decision. I know people feel both ways about that. And it's, a learning curve for me.
I appreciate that, Kate, and thanks for answering that honestly. I'm also concerned about why there wasn't a follow-up in the year that has the subsequent year in trying to bring that petition to the light and encouraging discussion about it. So that's another thing that actually concerns me deeply.
I guess I don't know which petition exactly you are referring to. I think you're thinking of all of the citizen warrant items. And I think, I think trying to have an outdoor meeting in the middle of the winter, in the middle of a pandemic, would have been really difficult to do. They will be on this ballot, or this, I think some of them will be on the warrant for our June meeting. And we can certainly play around with the order of the evening to make sure that those get heard.
Thank you. I'm seeing a few hands up. So I saw Sharon Gregory first. So Sharon, if you'd like to ask your question, please do so now.
Can you hear me now? I think I just unmuted myself. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My question has to do with marijuana decisions. And just to put it right out front, I'm for legalization, like the whole town, I think. But a lot of people have asked me why the select board has chosen to approve a marijuana retailer right next to two toy stores. And frankly, I couldn't answer it, and it really upset me. I'm a grandmother of two little boys, and I've voiced my opinion about it. I'm also concerned that there's so many in town center when Theory Wellness has been, successful with the parking and so forth out of town center. I know the only person that voted against these things was Lee Davis. So I guess I'm asking Kate, but the other candidates can chime in terms of like the thinking behind this.
So because it's specific to me, when I think of things that I've done on this board that I've lost sleep over, that I would take back, would be as I call it, between two toy stores. As a parent, it was probably my second meeting as a board member 3 years ago. And I had been told that because of the way that our regulations were written, there was no way that we could say no to it. And so I said yes. And it was that night, and it was also the Theory Wellness night, that I said yes. Since then, I have not said yes to a single marijuana store in this town because I feel very strongly about the inequities in color and in financial interest in these businesses. I in terms of where they are in town, I can't say that I have seen how much the 1 or 2 open stores in downtown have changed the parking situation. I haven't seen anybody go into those stores, I think, in my time going downtown, but I probably don't spend as much time downtown as other people. I think I've been a very strong voice on the board for my disinterest in supporting wealthy white individuals from opening marijuana shops in our town. And so we might be coming at it, you and I, Sharon, might be coming at it from different angles, but I think we do have similar ideas in terms of how we want to see it in our community.
Thank you. I guess I was mostly concerned about children and, the townspeople and keeping our village center that we got so many awards on. So I don't feel like I want to take the children, to the toy stores there. It's unfortunate.
I'm sorry that you feel that way.
I'd like to hear from Garfield and Eric. What do you think?
Thank you for the question, Sharon. As you know, many of you may know, I was opposed to Fulcrum. I'm not opposed, let me say this first, I'm not opposed to the legalization of marijuana. I'm not opposed to people making money. That's what it's all about. But I am opposed to it being where our children are. There is Rebel is right where there is a school bus stop. I fought against that. It didn't seem to do any good as a planning board member. Unfortunately, I didn't have a vote. As a select board member, I will have a vote and it will hopefully make a difference. But I am not for those stores being in our town. I'm not sure where we're going with this as a town, but it's not good for the children. They're talking about wanting to put a store up on Railroad Street, which is already crowded. And I'll quote you, as I said the last meeting, because people seem to talk about parking here ad nauseum. You're going to have all the stoners going up on Railroad Street, which is a tight street, and it's going to make it tough. There'll be no parking, and families that want to shop and be in our town will be unable to, and they'll have their kids exposed to that. I'm very much against that. Not against marijuana, but it should be in places such as where Theory is, where is away from kids and children. That's where we need them to be. I don't think it would make any difference to anyone driving into Great Barrington to want to purchase marijuana if they were going to get it at Theory or if they're going to get it somewhere else out of town. That is going to be where they'll go. And I think it wouldn't make a difference. And I'm sorry that we have these in the town. And but unfortunately, it's a done deal. But I certainly will advocate in the future for anything that's going to come across that will not protect our children.
I think we were approved 4 or 5 in the town, in the village center, I should say.
Correct.
And you meant, when you said not in town, you meant village center, not nowhere in Great Barrington, right?
So, Ken, my feelings on the dispensaries in the situation is, I think the market's going to sort out a lot of them. I think I don't, I drive through town, I walk through town quite a bit. I'm there for work purposes. The newer stores I'm seeing popping up, I'm not seeing any cars in their parking lot. I'm seeing a couple cars here and there when I'm driving by. I know that they must have invested a lot of money in them. And I'm not seeing the cars there. Theory, as everybody knows, prime parking spots, that place is busy. Why that one's busier more than the most, I have no idea. But I think you're going to see the market thins them out. Do we want them in our downtown? I don't want them scattered all over downtown. I don't think they're a draw for downtown. But I think you're going to see, in the beginning here, there's a big influx of them. I think you're going to see the permits stopping. And I think you're going to see them just pushing out. And, whether they want to follow Theory's lead or as the other states open up, we're not going to see all the Connecticut plates. We're not going to see the New York plates, so the market's going to go down. Do the locals go to there? I have no idea, but there's not going to be the market for all these coming up soon. So.
Thank you.
And I'm seeing a question from Trevor Forbes that might be a good follow-up for you, Eric, specifically referencing the application by Fulcrum. The question is, how would you have voted for that had you been a member of the select board?
Yes, thank you, Trevor, for that question. If I was a member of the select board, I would have voted no for the Van Dusenville greenhouses. What concerns me the most with the greenhouses, being an electrician, I have seen plans for grow facilities, greenhouses, items like that. The amount of lighting, not just for security purposes, but they end up filling them up for growing purposes. So you would drive by there and it would look like a NFL stadium, you know? So the fact that it was a greenhouse situation there was a definite non-starter for me. And then plus just that close vicinity, you know, it is an industrial type area. But like I said, it would have been like Gillette Stadium there if it happened to go in, so.
Ken,
Yes?
may I have just a really quick moment to clarify what Trevor wrote in his question? He
Go ahead.
said that he knew how I voted on the Fulcrum, but we never reached a vote. They withdrew their application before we voted. So I just want people to understand as they're reading through all of those notes that I never voted on it. So, and I think the select board even had very little time to talk about it as we let citizens speak first, and they spoke very loudly and very strongly about how they felt. So I just want to make sure that people understand that my voice was never heard and my voice was very much with that community.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Well, I was there. This is Garfield. I was very much opposed to Fulcrum, and I took a stand. I recused myself from the planning board, which to my knowledge was in favor of it. I was not. I spoke out vocally against it. And I partied, if you will, with the people of Housatonic because I believe in Housatonic and Great Barrington and all of our citizens. It was a terrible thing to do or a place to put it. And I stepped up and spoke out. I was there holding signs. I was there protesting. I was there at every meeting that we had in the town and with the Fulcrum folks, being definitely against it. And I think we did our job. They are not in our town. I think we were successful in showing our disapproval of having a plant there. And even when they tried to make it a smaller size, we felt that it just wasn't going to work. We weren't being told the truth. And I think we saw through their scheme and we basically ran them out of town. I'm proud to be a part of that initiative and that movement.
Okay, thank you. I do see that some folks are expressing their opinions in chat, and I see that the candidates have expressed their responses. So I'm happy to move on from that, unless one of the candidates, do any of the three of you want to clarify anything else or make any further remarks?
I'd like to say something, please, Ken. Nan Wiles speaking.
Okay.
And Kate, I hope you don't think I'm picking on you. I seem to remember that you voted in favor of Mateague. Is that correct or incorrect? You're muted.
Oops. I did vote in favor of McTeague. And one of the reasons I voted in favor of McTeague is it is owned by a gentleman of Indian descent and also run by a man who is Latinx. And that is important to me to have that representation.
Thank you. And Michelle Bluebear? apologies if I've mispronounced your name, but you've been waiting very patiently. Thank you. Please ask your question.
Thank you, Ken. You didn't mispronounce my name. Thank you. I wasn't even going to bring up marijuana issues tonight, but we seem to be on a roll. You know, I've heard it expressed not wanting, you know, retail around where children are. However, Fulcrum was going to be located directly across the street from the homes of young families, and I just want to point that out. So we're not only talking about retail, we're also talking about manufacturing and cultivation as well. That brings me to this question. In April 2018, the Select Board and the Planning Board had a joint meeting, at which time a Planning Board member expressed an opinion regarding the mills in Housatonic, saying, and I quote the article, Berkshire Edge article, "My dream is that the mills will get reused as growing facilities and come back on our tax rolls." And a former Select Board member had said, "Well, that may be your dream, it's my nightmare," being a resident of Housatonic. So I'm asking each candidate, marijuana cultivation and manufacturing in the Housatonic mills, if presented to you by a developer, would it be your dream or your nightmare? Very simple question.
Mrs. Garfield, it would be my nightmare. I would not vote for something like that. There are better uses for those mills that I think maybe you could even have some social programs in there. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I have not visited them. I don't know the working mechanisms of them, but I do believe that I know strongly I would not advocate for a marijuana manufacturing to be right in town. And there again, in your young people and children and families. So I would not be for it.
Yes, Michelle, thank you for that question. Regarding the mills in Housatonic, yeah, right dead center there. I would have to say nightmare at this point. We have Muse of Housatonic, which is doing an excellent job of drawing in artisans. We have Pulse there, drawing in young children, learning dance. And my dream would be for the rest of those buildings to fill out similarly with artisan space, maker space, even some sort of schooling and business type incubators in those zones. I am definitely for the development and keeping of all those buildings. Marijuana grow facilities, not the right fit.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. I also don't think that it is ever going to happen. The owner of the building has plans for the building that don't involve marijuana growth. I think that property taxes and property prices in Great Barrington are too expensive per square foot to try to do something like that. I think the bubble on this economy of marijuana in Massachusetts is going to burst, like fall apart really soon, which I have mentioned, and it's been a concern of mine since the beginning. So, I mean, no. No, I don't foresee it ever being something that we're entertaining.
Thank you.
So the next question I got is from someone identifying themselves as Bailey, and that is, maybe you could clarify who you are?
Jim Bailey from Housatonic.
Okay, thank you. Right, and the question is, do any of the three candidates believe that local elected officials can sometimes become complacent and ignorant towards the real needs of all throughout the community? If so, do any of you believe term limits would help keep a fresh, energetic perspective?
Yes. I don't disagree with any of the things that Jim has said in his question. I think, you know, the real hard thing is getting people to want to participate. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. You know, we couldn't find anybody to run for the second open finance seat this year. Perhaps that would cause more people to get involved, to feel like there was a period of time you could do it and then it would move on to the next person. But it could also mean that we don't. And that's an interesting question.
Yes, I agree with Kate there. You know, even just town meetings and stuff, you know, there's poor numbers, Adam. You know, I wish there was more. I myself just getting way more involved the last few years, going to town meetings and stuff, and it is, but there is an issue of tons of non-contested seats and people trying to find the time. It is a commitment. People are trying to pay their bills. People have families. It is. I wish every seat was contested. I wish there was 6 people running for these 2 seats right now. But unfortunately, in Great Barrington, that's not the case. So.
I think the question of complacency is an issue. We probably maybe need to possibly instill term limits. I don't know, truthfully, not being a member of the select board yet, but I think it would depend on where we're at as far as things are being done. If we're in the middle of something and the people that are working on it are doing a good job, then I don't know if it would be a good idea to turn it over. But I think complacency is a problem. It does happen in every phase of anything you're doing. And maybe we ought to step back and re-energize, but complacency is a problem.
Thank you. This next question, and again, forgive me with pronunciation, comes from Giovanina Pagano. And she says, which communities are you in touch with in Great Barrington? Who are you listening to? Who are you having conversations with? And who do you feel you most strongly represent?
This is Garfield. So I stated earlier, I am pretty much like a blue collar gentleman. I'm still working. My home was made available to me from a loan to construct, which was made it affordable housing, if you will. So I think that's important. I will come back to that in a moment.
The other
I'm sorry, Ken. Let me just finish. As you well know, that I am definitely wanting to be someone to speak for people who have not been heard, for the work, not so much that they're saying the working class people, but there's a lot of people out here. When we have meetings sometimes, and you only see 5, 6, 7 people here, you have to understand that there are a lot of people who don't have the time to come out, can't commit. Maybe they're too shy, or maybe they have a job that preempts them from doing something because they can't afford to alienate any of their customers. But the people I like to speak to and would want to hear and come to me are the people who feel like they don't have a voice. When you have 6 or 7 people in the room, I used to be in radio. And the example I give you is when my boss when I told him I used to work at WSBS, as a matter of fact, back in 2002, I was a DJ there. And I would go to my boss and say, you know what, someone said I'm doing a great job. And he'd say to me, well, you know what, if you have 1 person, you probably have 100. So I like people to think that just because there's only 5 or 6 or 7 people showing up to voice their opinion does not mean there's not a bunch of people behind it. So I think we need to, that's what I think is missing. I think we're not really listening to everyone, even if everyone doesn't show up. That's why I wanted to speak for people who maybe might be afraid to speak.
Thank you. And Kate, you want to?
Sure. I work for Berkshire Grown, specifically working with local regional farmers to get food directly to food pantries in southern Berkshire County. So I work really closely with people that have food insecurities, as well as the people that produce a lot of the food that we eat in the area. I work really closely with a group of the Southern Berkshire Rural Health Network. And we sit and we talk a lot about these issues, and health more as a bigger picture than just your physical health, but your mental health, your home, your housing status, and ability. In this group, it's principals and superintendents and hospital directors and immigrant coordinators, and we do a lot of listening and a lot of problem solving and a lot of working together to find solutions, so that people's needs are being met. And I think I've really taken that work that I do into the work that I do on the select board. I don't know if that answers your question.
So, Ken, thank you. I feel I'm very easy to approach, and like I said, I have people come up to me all the time and talk to me, and I talk to all my neighbors, and I feel there's a sense, and it kind of relates back to the last question. A lot of people I talk to feel a little out of touch, and with the select board or with just government in general overall, and I feel that I could be a good bridge for those people to come in, new member on the board, easy to talk to. I welcome talking to people that we have disagreements with. I like to see different points of view. I like to work on an equal ground to see if we can just meet in the middle somewhere, and all that debate and everything excites me. I do it in a very calm manner. I don't judge people on their opinions. And in Housatonic, as I've been working on houses and stuff and moving around, just been getting in deep discussions with neighbors and in the older community and the younger kids trying to move to town, trying to hold on to being able to live in Housatonic, Great Barrington, and so I'm listening to everybody, and I'm excited to listen to more people. This whole opportunity has given me a great opportunity to meet so many new people. And, once you think most people, there's just so many more, and it's been a great experience, and I'm love to continue it.
So I do want to head towards closing off this discussion now that we've been at it for an hour. I do want to cover as many topics as possible and hear as many voices as possible. So that's how I'm trying to arrange this. There is a question that hasn't been addressed yet from Tom Ferris. Can we be more aggressive through our state reps in getting more assistance from the state for our infrastructure, including bridges and schools? Seems like we have to raise our voices to a higher level to garner more assistance in a timely way. So what's up with those bridges?
What's up with those bridges? We are getting some progress happening with the Division Street Bridge, that a temporary bridge will be put in, or hopefully put in. We have absolutely had the ear of state and even federal representatives in terms of getting moving forward. The process is so arduous. It's unreal. It is incredibly frustrating. And I think, Nan said it earlier, she noticed that maybe I wasn't going to run. And the process has certainly been not just that, but in general, something that has caused me to think if this is the best way I can help my community. But I do think we are raising our voices so that we can be heard and have help with the infrastructure issues. And yes, we can be doing more.
Yes, I would, infrastructure is a national issue, right? America's infrastructure across, it's just a disaster. And with something we definitely need to focus on here, we do need to hound the state. We do hope that some sort of federal infrastructure plan gets pushed through. We need the money from wherever we can get it. And we need to focus on getting our bridges in. We need to focus on our water lines getting repaired and replaced and clean water to everybody in Great Barrington and Housatonic. We need infrastructure. We need our high speed. We don't have high speed fiber optics in Housatonic. I consider that infrastructure. We need to focus on that as well. Bridges, definitely. Anywhere we can get the money, we need to scream for it, and we need to grab it when we can. And I would love for our state representatives and our federal representatives to help us with that as well.
Mr. Garfield, I kind of want to echo as well what the other two candidates said. We certainly do need some attention to our infrastructure. It's very important. As Eric said, it is a national problem. To my understanding, the Division Street Bridge will be open in about a year. It will have a single lane. We'll have a stop right there, so it will be a single lane traffic, but it should be open in about a year. If I understand correctly, the town will then own the bridge after the repairs are done. The Cottage Street Bridge, we're waiting for the state, and they're going to fund the whole foot the bill, if you will, for that bridge. So that's why we're waiting the 5 years, which now I'm not quite sure, it might be 3 years left on it. But I think that's important. And I think it's important that the Division Street Bridge gets some attention, and it will be fixed. And also the Brown Bridge is a state project, but that should be done probably next summer.
Okay, thank you. And let's just do one final question for the candidates. I'm so sorry. I know that there's 100 people here and not everybody's going to get a chance, but this is one we haven't talked about yet. So what are the candidates' views on the future of the Housatonic Water Company, given all of the residents' problems with water supply and costs?
It's a really great question and something that should have probably been addressed 20 years ago. I feel really strongly that something drastic needs to be done to make that better for the people of Housatonic. Again, it's an infrastructure thing. I think with this pipeline of potential funding coming for infrastructure from the federal government, and Biden talking about wanting to get rid of all the lead pipes, and I don't know. I'm sure there are some, but I don't know about lead pipes specifically in Housatonic, so I don't want to say that. But I do think that there could be more funding for fixing that infrastructure if it was municipally owned as opposed to privately owned. So I do feel strongly about moving in that direction, which is something that we are moving on, or trying to assess what that would look like.
This is Garfield. I'm being quite frank with you. I am not up to speed on the Housatonic water, but if elected, I certainly will make it a project of mine. It will be some homework I have to do. I will listen to the people in Housatonic. I think from what I hear, they're getting brown water. That doesn't make anyone happy. That needs to cease and desist in maybe there needs to be more discussion with the people that run the Housatonic Water to see if we can work that issue out. But I certainly think it needs to be some attention, and if elected, I will certainly make it one of my projects.
Yes, Housatonic water issue has been something I've heard talked about pretty much most of my life. And it's trying, who doesn't want clean water, clear water every time they turn on their sink? And not everybody in Housatonic has that. It is unfortunate it's not a town municipal utility, but it's not the case. I do think it needs to be expedited for major federal money to sort it out. There's miles of pipe that need to be replaced. There's a whole filtration system that needs to go in. It's just the costs are huge, and I don't see it being a private entity and being able to meet those costs without our water. I just don't know how it's done. It just needs to become I would think it would need to become a public utility, and that process I'm not fully up to speed on, but definitely willing to learn about it.
Okay, thank you, candidates, for your answers to the questions. What I want to do now is give you each a brief moment to say any final words. And I know that I haven't read every single thing that's been in the chat, but in your brief closing remarks, if you want to respond to anything that you see in the chat, you're welcome to do so. But I'm not going to obligate you to do that. So maybe we'll go in reverse alphabetical order this time. So we'll start with Mr. Reed. Take a minute or two. Any final thoughts or statements? And you're muted, sir.
Thank you, Ken. Tough to hear when you're muted. My final thoughts are, again, I will reiterate that I want to speak for all. I know if elected, my job will be to represent Great Barrington and Housatonic. I think sometimes Housatonic maybe feels like a stepchild and does not get the attention it deserves. And I think all of the town, Great Barrington and Housatonic, need to work together. And I would certainly think that I could be someone to help bridge that. What is actually a real concern with people in Housatonic and Great Barrington, even though we're the same municipality, there seems to be some problems. So myself, I'm a grassroots person. Again, I'm a blue collar type guy. I'm working. I know what it's like. I think affordable housing is something that really needs to be done in this town. I think we need to speak about job creation again. I've not heard it in any meetings. I don't have the answer, but I do know I will start the talks again because it's important. We're a service industry, and the $7 or whatever people unfortunately are making is not going to enable them to beat homeowners or property owners and make it tough to pay rent. The median income for household owners in this town is about $84,000, and for renters, it's almost $40,000. It's like $39,685, I believe. So it's important that we bridge the gap. We do need more places like the 45 units that are going in on Bridge Street. And I will clarify that, saying that I don't believe that the state would put people in jeopardy by that. And as I've heard someone say, hey, it's 45 homes that this town needs. So I will push for affordable housing. I would like to see some job creation. Again, as I stated, I think we need to do something with the school. If we consolidate, maybe that will take care of it. But a vocational component would be very helpful to Great Barrington and our young people if we'd like them to stay here. And of course, higher paying jobs and and a safe community. I've spoken with Chief Stority. He's very sincere. I let him know that they're on the right track as far as getting assistance where it's needed. They have a canine dog. They also are working with a mental health worker when there's an issue. They're speaking with someone who will help them with autism. They're also having Chief Stority having their officers put themselves in the victim, if you will, or the perpetrator's place to let you know how it feels. So they have their finger on the pulse, and I endorse that, and I like what they're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I would just like to address a couple of comments I see on the sidebar there. And I've been going to town meetings. I don't know. I think I've been to the last 6 or 7 years worth of town meetings. Always there. Am I up at the podium making a scene or talking or pushing my views on people? No, but I am there voting my beliefs. I'm there supporting my friends. I'm supporting the issues that I did. I want to be on the select board, so I have more of a voice for that. I find you get more done when you're in the position. I'm not a big yeller. I'm not a big screamer. I'm a thinker. I'm a negotiator, and that's what I'm going to bring to the select board. There's questions about me being recruited. I'm not even sure what that is for, but I pulled my paperwork a bit on, the final days, and I pulled my paperwork after an article was written in The Edge about it's time to take the Housatonic school down. And I've been working on the HIC for a year, and it's been a struggle. Zoom, COVID, and I feel that me and my board members have been working hard to get stuff going, get used to Zoom, understand the post, all this stuff to get it going, to get some traction. And right as I felt we were getting good momentum, this article comes out kneecapping us, I felt, and it made me angry. And I said, the only way we're going to solve this is if I run for town select board and I can have more power, not power, but more influence on this situation. So recruitment, no. So I'm here for everybody in Great Barrington. I do feel that I could be a voice for Housatonic, who I feel has been a little underrepresented. And what's good for Housatonic is good for Great Barrington. What's good for Great Barrington is good for Housatonic. And so I love what this whole process I've been going through. I love the people I've been meeting. I love the deep discussions I've been having with strangers up until now. And I love the fact that old family friends I haven't seen for years have come knocking on my door, asking how to support me, asking whatever they can do to help me in this situation. And it's just been an awesome feeling. And I'm so glad to have been a part of it. And I hope to be a part of it for a lot longer. So thank you for everything tonight. And thanks, Ken, for everything.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I have to say, I think that Great Barrington is going to be in really great hands. However, this election turns out, I think both Eric and Garfield are great, great candidates. I have spent the last year at home, out of work, dropped out of school, stuck at home with my 2 children until they started going back to school. And I definitely wasn't able to do all that I wanted to do for this town. And I'm listening and I'm learning, and I really would like an opportunity to continue to sit on the board of the select board for another term, to be able to continue to think about the issues that are really important to everybody. And be a voice for a lot of people that aren't heard, which I feel like I often am. And so I would be grateful for that opportunity. Thank you.
And thank you to all 3 select board candidates for coming tonight and speaking with the public. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Ken. And thank you for citizens of Great Barrington for your questions and your concerns. And I hope you will consider me on May 11th as your select board member.
So we're going to move now to the Finance Committee. And I understand that there are 2 open seats on this committee and only 1 person running. So there is a seat that is open that, to my knowledge, nobody is running for. So once again, if there's any write-in candidates, please let me know through chat. And if you're interested in becoming a write-in candidate, then you have 7 days. Okay, but turning to the person who is running for the open seat, I understand that to be Phil Orenstein, or Orenstein. Are you here today?
I'm right here, yeah.
Great. Would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm coming in at the end, so I will try to be very brief. Hello, my name is Philip Orenstein, and I've lived at 4 Alfred Road for over 20 years. My family and I love Great Barrington, its people, and the landscape. With a career in finance and an MBA from NYU, I feel well prepared to contribute to the town's government. The importance of the Finance Committee to the town is well stated in its mission statement on the town website. That is to provide advice and assistance to the town manager, select board, and other town officials on financial matters by efficiently identifying, analyzing, and making recommendations on financial matters that have a material impact on the well-being of the town. In other words, to make sure that our collected tax payments and borrowed money are spent carefully, appropriately, and productively, and in a manner consistent with the town's established budget and financial policy. In addition to its role as a fiscal watchdog, the Finance Committee should provide thoughtful recommendations relating to larger changes to funding sources and expenditures. For example, town revenues will continue to be affected by significant events, such as the COVID pandemic, the legalization of cannabis, and changes to state and federal aid programs. On the expenditure side, recent events highlight our infrastructure needs, including bridges, water supply, affordable housing, and the schools. On some of these more controversial items, the ability of the Finance Committee to provide objective, fact-based assessments is critical to the long-term health of our town. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll ask you a brief question, and if anybody else has questions while we're talking, we won't go very long, Scout's honor, but you can use the raise hand function or put them in the chat. School district budgets make up a large portion of town budgets, don't they? Like as a general rule. So I wonder how you conceive of your role on the Finance Committee when it comes to looking at those proposed budgets, you know, these big 120-page documents you get. Do you feel like the Town Finance Committee has any oversight responsibility for that? Or do you feel like the school district should just be somehow trusted to make their own budget and we should provide them the resources they need?
Well, certainly, I mean, the town budget has about 13 million of its own spending on town affairs, but the school system is independent, and there's a totally separate infrastructure in place to make those decisions about what the school budget should look like. So, as I am learning this, and candidly, I am learning this as a newcomer to the town government potentially. The Finance Committee role in the school budget is relatively modest. We certainly approve the ultimate allocation of funds by the town to the school district, but our input into the line-by-line items in that school budget, and certainly big decisions within that school budget, are relatively modest. At the same time, I certainly have an opinion about the school system. It's obviously by far the largest cost item in our town's budget. It dominates our spending, and it obviously grows significantly year by year. The effort that's been underway now for several years to explore options to consolidate a number of the school systems into a consolidated countywide district is certainly the right approach, given the enormous opportunity for cost savings and efficiencies in that larger setup. So I certainly would do everything I could to encourage and facilitate the ongoing discussions, which are quite complicated, with respect to a new consolidated school district.
Thank you for your response. And I understand that Vivian has a question for you.
Thank you. Our state legislature is currently considering the first steps towards providing state reimbursement for towns with elderly tax deferral safety net programs. Would you, as a future member of the Finance Committee, consider asking our state representative, Smitty Pignatelli, and our state senator, Adam Hines, to prioritize such state reimbursement of senior tax deferral programs? In other words, having the Finance Committee go on the record in reaching out to our state legislators.
Well, my understanding of our role in that process would be to provide essentially analysis and a detailed assessment of the implications of your tax deferral proposal to the select board. And then the select board would make a decision as to how it wants to proceed. I've heard your proposal in detail on a number of occasions. It's certainly well-intentioned, and you're absolutely right. It's been deployed in various towns within Massachusetts, and it has all the right objectives. If I were to be serving on the Finance Committee, what I would certainly want to do is work with the other members of the committee and really get a better sense of the detailed understanding of the implications to the town of the tax deferral program. And we will have to first consider it without any state reimbursement, as that program is not in place yet. So, for example, I agree with you that a tax deferral is not, it's still, those deferred taxes are still payable by the homeowner at some later point in time, most likely when they sell the house or they pass away and the house is sold. What the town needs to understand in a little bit greater detail is the implications to its cash management with any material rollout of this program. Because it's a deferral, but that means that the town may be short some funds for a significant period of time. So, for example, if we have more people using the program for a longer period of time with longer deferrals, and that will have implications to the town, and the select board just needs to see a bit more detail, or a great deal more detail, as to the implications of that program. But I think I certainly, again, understand the objectives of it, but it's a classic case where the devil's in the detail there. There are a lot of variables within that proposal that can have a material effect on the cash and financial health of the town, and we need to help the select board better understand that.
My question was asking whether you would encourage the Finance Committee to reach out to our state legislators to move forward on a state reimbursement, and that is separate from what we decide to do go ahead with in Great Barrington. Obviously,
Yeah.
it would influence the future of our program here.
Well, I mean, I agree. I would be happy to do that. I'm not sure how successful that would be, but it certainly it would make the program even that much more appealing to Great Barrington if we were reimbursed on all the deferrals and there was really no cash impact to the town. So I agree with you, that's a terrific outcome. I would just be very cautious in thinking that the support of the Great Barrington Finance Committee would move that ahead much faster.
You never know.
That's true. That's true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions for Phil, we'll move right along. So do you want to give everyone on the ballot a chance to have their voice heard? Next up is moderator, although I understand that Michael Wise had to run to moderate another meeting. So I'll just check. Michael Wise, are you here? So I think he had to attend to another obligation. Move on to Board of Health. I understand that Peter Stanton is running for Board of Health. Are you here Peter Stanton. Not hearing a response, we'll go on, but let me know if that changes. Next, let's look at library trustees. I understand we've got two candidates running for two seats on the for library trustees, and those candidates are Patrick Hollenbeck and Kathleen Plunges. So Patrick, are you here?
Present and accounted for.
And Kathleen, are you with us? So I think what we'll do, Patrick, is let you make a short statement, and then if anybody wants to ask you a question, then they'll have a space to do so.
I'll make a very short statement because I know it's getting late and I want everybody's vote, so I'll be quick. So I'm Patrick Hollenbeck. I'm chair of the library trustees for at least the next 170 hours until the election. And hopefully, if you vote for me, then I'll continue with this. I think, it's interesting. We've been at this now for quite a while. Not the word library has not come up at all. Not one person has talked about that. So if the candidates for select board are on, I would just soon cede my time to them because we need to know if they're going to support the libraries. Like right now during this pandemic, there hasn't been any hours for working people to have access to the library by virtue of the days and times we've had it. And that's a decision that the library trustees, we don't have authority for. We're voted into office, but the power in the town charter is actually above our pay grade. It's at town hall. So the folks that will be on that next select board have an important decision to make. So if they're still on, that's my question to them.
Okay, well, this is a candidates forum, so I think for select board members that are here that aren't currently running, maybe we'll not hear from you, but for the three candidates for select board, if you did want to respond to Pat's question, I think we, very briefly, if you wanted to make a response.
I love libraries so much. I wanted to be a librarian. I am not a librarian. I am definitely a supporter of the libraries in our community and will always continue to be so.
And this is Garfield, and I am very much a supporter of the library, and I love it because I'm cheap and I can get my book for free there. So you can't beat the library. And I love reading, so it's wonderful. Any endorsement that I can help with the library, I'm willing to do.
Thank you.
And Eric, if you're on the line, if you wanted to make a brief remark. So Eric may not be here, and that's fine. Yeah, thank you. Anything further for Patrick? Okay, thank you. So let's move on to Housing Authority. I understand we've got two candidates for two open seats, and those candidates are Mary Pat Akers and John Grogan. Mary Pat, are you here tonight? And I also just heard that Kathleen is traveling and unable to be here.
I think Mary Pat is not here. This is John.
Sorry, John, I couldn't quite make that out. Mary Pat.
I think Mary Pat is not here.
Right, not here. And what about John Grogan?
That's me.
That's you. Oh, great. Your last name isn't displayed there. John, if you'd like to take a moment and briefly introduce yourself, and we'll hold space for questions afterwards.
Yeah, I'm John Grogan. I live in Housatonic, been here a long time. I was on the school committee for 10 years or so. I am distraught by the Housatonic school collapse. I was the PTO chairman of the PTO at the school. And also started the Housatonic School Scholarship Fund, which is now managed by Central Housatonic, but it's still our scholarship, which is kind of cool. And I'm going to be on the Housing Authority, primarily because, as I heard Karen Church say before, nobody else really wants to do it. Whenever I 8 years ago, 10 years ago, term limits was a big thing that people kicked around and said, we need term limits. We need more of the old blood is no good. Well, you know, if you had term limits, you wouldn't have anybody on a lot of the boards, unfortunately. So I don't want term limits out. But
Looks like we may have lost John there. If we get him back, we'll give him a chance to finish his remarks. But for the moment, perhaps we'll move forward to planning board. I understand there's one candidate for one open seat. That's Pedro Pachano. Pedro, are you here tonight?
I am here.
And would you like to make a brief statement?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to introduce myself to those who don't know me. My name is Pedro Pachano. I have been an associate member of the planning board for 2 years and have had the pleasure of serving the last 3 years as a full member. As in my duties on the planning board, I serve as a delegate also at the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, which is a great treat for me. As if you're not familiar with what the work of BRPC is, I encourage you to look up their website. It's full of information about the county in which we live in and lots of programs that they promote across the county that help a lot of people and also help our government locally. Also, I served on a housing committee. It's a subcommittee made up of 2 select board members and 2 planning board members. I was on an open space and recreation committee where we looked at and identified locations across town that we thought were the most suitable or more important areas to advise the state for grant money. So I'm glad to say things like the path all the way up to CHP up Stockbridge Road was part of the work that we did on the Open Space and Recreation Committee. The last 3 years, or really the last 5 years, my focus on the planning board has been on housing, creating housing diversity. So we're always talking about affordable housing in town, but it's very important that we also think about a diversity of housing. What I mean by that is we have a town dominated by single family homes, which leaves the opportunity for many people in our town to live in smaller places like apartments, condominiums, townhouses, that sort of thing. I believe that our dwindling population is directly related to us not having that type of housing diversity. So I'd like to keep working towards creating more opportunities across town, particularly in areas. If you think about the main corridor, Route 23, all the way up from the senior center all the way up to Stockbridge Road, we are loaded with infrastructure along that area that is just dreadfully not poorly, but dreadfully underused. And it's an important area, or the most logical area for us to really be focusing our development. So the housing question and the development question in those areas are keys to what I would hope to bring for the next 3 years to the planning board. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions from anybody.
Could I jump in and just apologize? I guess I didn't put enough quarters in the machine or something.
Of course, John. Let's finish up with the planning board, and then we'll come back to you.
My machine might die at any moment, so I'm checking it out.
Okay.
I said my piece. If you have questions.
We'll get back to John in just a moment. Thank you, Pedro. Are there any questions for Mr. Pachano? Seeing no questions, thank you for your statement. Thank you for coming.
Sure. If I could just say one more thing, Ken, I'd like for anybody who's out there listening that, I haven't heard in the last 3 years, I don't hear a lot from people having questions for me about what we do on planning. I invite anybody to contact me anytime they want. I especially encourage people who are interested in proposing citizens petitions to town meeting to contact me, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. Whether or not I agree with what you're doing or not, I will most certainly help you, formulate it in a way that would. And that, what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that the people sometimes propose things to town meeting for changes to our bylaw, but our bylaw is very complicated. So getting proposal with a language that's sort of suitable to be able to include into the bylaw can be kind of tricky. So I would just like to think or open the door to anybody who's interested in my advice to reach out.
Thank you. I do see a hand up, Michelle Lubert, if you'd like to ask a question.
Thank you, Ken. Michelle Lubert, 70 Division Street. I attend almost every planning board meeting. And oftentimes the topic of neighborhood character is brought up. Many times, citizens attending the meetings are there to defend their neighborhoods, protect their enjoyment of property. And I have heard on more than one occasion, neighborhood character almost scoffed at. I would like to just hear from Mr. Pachano what his position is on our residential neighborhoods and the people who live there and the right to enjoyment of property versus town planning. Thank you.
Well, I mean, if I can ask you, what do you mean about what I think about our residential neighborhoods?
Well, I was talking about neighborhood character. For example, on Maple Avenue, I'm just picking Maple Avenue up as the neighborhood. They were talking about enjoyment of their property. Their homes are there versus the apartment complex going up at the nursing home. You're well aware of the Fulcrum battle up on Van Duzenville Road, the residents up there wanting to protect their neighborhood enjoyment of property. There is the airport neighborhood as well. So you're in a paradox between town planning, development, and preserving neighborhood character and enjoyment of property. I'm simply asking, what is your position on that?
Okay, well, I would invite anybody to look up my opinion on character that I published in The Edge a few weeks back. That will elaborate a little bit more on what I'll say tonight. I think the real question about neighborhood, about character in general, is a preservation question, and the questions as I ask in my essay are, what exactly are we preserving, for who, for what, what's the purpose, and what's the effect of that preservation. So it's a very difficult question. The concept of character in general is very difficult to nail down. And you bring up Maple Avenue as an example. Well, it's very difficult to say that is a residential neighborhood. It is a part of town that is off of a state road, that is surrounded by businesses, one that you can kind of call a big, or two actually, the Dunkin' Donuts and Agway. There are two big chain stores. There are 3 buildings there that are all office buildings. There's the Creative Solutions building. So there's lots of businesses there. Across the street, there are lots of homes. Scattered within those homes are a lot of businesses. So it's hard to really say from a use perspective what the character of that area is. I would tend to think that area is a little bit more commercial. So just to make my answer less long than it already is, character is it's a very tough thing to nail down, and I understand people's concerns about the enjoyment of their properties. But, you're right. We're in a tough position on the planning board where we're thinking about development. We're thinking about what the right way of the town is to grow, where it should grow, and in what way. But in the end, there's no great city, great town, great area that, including Great Barrington, that hasn't had to make some sacrifices, that where people of the town have not had to make some sacrifices for the better good. And I would say that the sacrifices that were made where our downtown is today were proven to be for the good of the town, for the good of everybody here. So I hope that helps. I know it's kind of a non-answer in a way, but I go to the essay I wrote on the Edge. That'll give you an idea. One last thing I'll say is that in that article, I do mention that I don't believe that character really should play a role in decision-making processes at the government level, because again, it's subjective. It's way too subjective for a group of people to be deciding on what exactly the character of the place is. I would like to say a word just in support of the planning board that we in no way design anything or do anything so that people will cease to enjoy their properties. To even think that might be a possibility that we do is really maybe we need to work harder at describing what our intentions are. But we work very hard to create a sort of equal opportunity for everyone and anyone who wants to enjoy living in this great town.
And may I just follow up?
Very briefly, please. We got a couple more committees to go, and it'd be good to get this done in about 10, 15 minutes.
All right, I'll let the question pass. I can speak with Mr. Pachano directly. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you both.
All right, thanks.
I know we've got Mr. Grogan back on the line. Are there any, from the Housing Authority candidate, are there any questions for Mr. Grogan? So John, if you did want to take a brief moment, half a minute to finish up your introduction.
I'm done. I get this point of sentence. No, I really don't have anything else to say. I mean, I was appointed to the Housing Authority. I've been to 2 meetings. I think there's lots that we can do. I think we both know that there would be affordable housing taking place. And I'm excited to see what we can.
John, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Could you speak closer to your microphone?
Okay. I've been appointed to the Housing Authority. I've been to 2 meetings, and I'm excited to see where we can take it, not only from the affordable housing point of view, but also from the senior housing point of view, which is primarily what we do at this point. So, thanks.
Thank you, much appreciated. And let us move on to Zoning Board of Appeals. So I understand we've got 2 candidates for 2 open seats, Steve McAllister and Madonna Meager. And I understand that Madonna is not here tonight, but Steve is. Is that correct? Are you here with us, Steve?
Yes, I am. And I will turn on my camera also. There we go.
So if you'd like to introduce yourself for up to 2 minutes.
Well, I won't take that long. I'm Steve McAllister. I'm finishing my first term on the planning board. The Zoning Board of Appeals. I say planning board because I was a planning board member for 19 years in the town of Tolland, and I was the chairman for about probably 15 of that. So that was the background that I came out of. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a bit different because of its powers, and it's a fairly powerful board in dealing with land and structures. And so I've found the Great Barrington Zoning Board of Appeals to be a very well constituted board. there are a lot of smart people on that board, and I've really appreciated working with them. We do our best to strike a balance between the needs and desires of the entire community and those of individuals who are landowners and taxpayers and dwellers in the town. And our role is to provide some relief to the zoning bylaws in town. That's the primary role. For land and structures, we're able to grant certain special permits, not use permits. That's all Board of Selectmen, I do believe, or Planning Board and Board of Selectmen. And we also could be involved in comprehensive permits, as they're called, for low to moderate income housing when that does arise. So that's the role of the board, and I've enjoyed being on it and have certainly benefited from it, and would plan to enjoy being on it for another term. Since I'm running unopposed, that may happen. So that's really all I have to say. It's late, and I would be happy to answer any questions anyone has, and if they don't, I'm not offended. So
Thank you. Are there any questions from the public for Mr. McAllister?
Good.
Seeing none, we thank you for your introduction. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And we'll move finally to constables. I understand we have two candidates for two open positions, Walter Atwood III and John Broderick Jr. Are either of you here today? So that being the case, I'm hearing, or rather I should say not hearing, that our constables aren't present tonight. And so that will conclude all of the candidates on the ballot to my knowledge. And with that, I think we'll close our forum for this year. I want to thank all of the candidates for coming and interacting with the public. I want to thank the public for coming, interacting with the candidates. I thank the newsletter and the Democratic and Republican town committees for sponsoring this event. And I'll leave you all by saying, have a good night and go vote.
Thank you, Ken.